If you're not dead, God is not done. God can still use you. He still has a plan. He still has a purpose for your life. Let me go right into the message this morning. Let me go into the scripture. We're in John chapter 18, verse 26 and 27. It says, one of the high priest's servants, relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him in the garden? And again, Peter denied him. At that moment, the rooster began to crow. This was the third time that he did. Peter said that he would never turn his back on Jesus, but he denied him 3 times. And then in John chapter 12, verse 15, we go there. It says, so when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said, feed my lambs. He said again, a second time, son of Jonah, do you love me? He said, yes, Lord, you know I love you. He said, tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon Peter, son of Jonah, do you love me? And Peter was grieved, and I would have been kind of grieved at this point. I'd have kind of been like, well, Jesus, I just answered it. I just answered it 2 times in a row. He asked him again, do you love me? And he said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. He said, feed my sheep. After Peter had denied Jesus and all that chaos was going off in his head and in his heart and in his mind, it was just going crazy for him. After all this, Peter went back to doing the same thing he did before he met Jesus. And there are so many people that go back. They started on fire for Jesus. They served Jesus. They did all these things for Jesus. And then they make one little mistake. And they go back to doing what they did before they met Jesus. They start doing the same old thing in their lives. But let me mention something to you. If you're not dead, God still can use you. If you're not dead, God is not done. God can still use you. He still has a plan. He still has a purpose for your life. So Peter, he's fishing. He's out on the water. And what does he see on the shore? He sees Jesus out there on the shore. And what does Peter do? He jumps in the water, jumps out of the boat, jumps in the water and begins to swim towards Jesus. He comes out of the water and he's looking face to face with Jesus. And what is Jesus doing at this point in time? Jesus is fixing a meal of restoration. Jesus is in the business of restoration. I love that he's in the business of wanting to bring people back to him. The Bible tells us that he will leave the 99 to go after the one. If you messed up, if you've fallen, he will make sure. And when Jesus does it, he does it ridiculously. He does it amazing, and he'll plow through anything to get to you to bring him back to the fold. That's who my Jesus is. The Bible said that at bread and fish, that's what he was fixing. And Peter looked in the face of Jesus, and he had such guilt. He had such condemnation. He's the one. He's looking at the face of the one that he denied. And Jesus asked him a question 3 times. Do you love me? He didn't say, why did you run? He didn't say, why did you cuss? He didn't say, why did you deny me when I needed you most? He asked one question. Do you love me? He said, I don't care about what you did wrong, but do you have the impulse, the desire to be with me? I don't know how many times you have failed. I don't know how many times you've gotten off track. I don't know how many times you've messed up in your life. But Jesus is asking you today, here and up there and online, do you still love me? Do you still love me? Do you still want to be with you? Jesus has one question for each and every one of us today. Do you love me? All those other dudes, all those other ones, they fled. But Peter came back. You see, that's what we need to learn from this scripture right now. No matter what you do, no matter how far you fall, don't run from Jesus, run to Jesus. Run to him. Run to him. Run to him. Run, run, run. Keep on running to him. You can't out-sin God's grace. Now listen, I'm not glorifying sin. Don't sin. You shouldn't sin. We shouldn't sin. We should try to do everything from not sinning. But I fall, you fall, we all fall. And when the devil whispers in your ear, you're not worthy. You don't measure up. You're worthless. Who does measure up? I don't. I mess up every day. In fact, I mess up, you mess up, we all mess up. But do you love Jesus? You see, when I fail forward. I want to learn to fail forward. You know, you may think that I'm preaching this greasy grace, but I'm not. I'm preaching the Bible. I'm preaching redemption. I'm preaching that when you're tempted, I'm preaching that when you fall, that when you finish, do you fail forward? Do you get up? Because we all mess up, but do you run to Jesus?